was wondering if you could talk about how you approach women and girls who find themselves on various parts of the spectrum, who hijab but are still very much empowered in their own right, et cetera, and how you, as a feminist and an activist, approach that community.
I used to wear hijab. I wore a headscarf for 9 years. But one of the issues that I bring up in the book, and that has made me kind of reconsider my position, I mean, I'm basically obsessed with the veil, and I hate the veil, that it makes me obsess over it, and I hate that most conversations about Muslim women end up being about the veil, but I can't stop talking about the veil because it's something that I continue wrestling about. It's honestly, it's endless. But my position and my relationship with the veil had to be complicated by my own realization that when I began to wear it, and I say I chose to wear it at 16, this word choice is what essentially makes me constantly wrestle with veiling of various types. So I chose to wear it at 16. I wore it for 9 years, but it took me 8 years to take it off. Because very soon after I began to wear it, I realized it was not for me, for various reasons. And if you want to know why I wore it and why I took it off, buy my book. But this idea that it took me 8 years to take it off made me sit down and question what it means to choose to do something. Why was it easier for me to choose to wear it than it was to take it off? So as a feminist, this is why I brought up this idea of choice feminism. A lot of feminists these days are talking and arguing about choice feminism. Do I have to support something just because a woman chose to do it? And I've reached a stage where I say, no, I don't. Because of my own personal struggle with the hijab. Now, discussions about the face veil are very different, and I will keep the face veil out of this just for the sake of brevity, which I clearly fail at. But when it comes to just the headscarf, the way I talk about it now is, what kind of choice are we talking about if it's a choice that's easier to make than to reverse? Modesty culture ends up unfairly burdening girls and women in the way that purity culture does, with this obsession with virginity. If only girls and women are expected to make a choice that boys and men are not expected to, I don't see any feminism in that. So you can make a choice, doesn't have to be a feminist choice, and I don't have to support that choice. So this is how I now, especially since I began my book tour, this is how I talk about the headscarf. I say that, okay, you might have chosen to do this. I don't know how easy it will be for you to unchoose it, because it wasn't for me. And I put this now under this thing called modesty culture that I believe unfairly burdens girls and women, and boys and men are not expected to make that choice. And this is where we part ways with feminism. I had a young woman come up to me after my reading in Ottawa. She wore a headscarf. Now, most of my discussions of the veils, the various types of veils, are in my context, which is the Middle East and North Africa. Here in North America, it's a different context, obviously, because, I mean, first of all, women veil for different reasons. Some believe it's religious obligation, some fight their family, some fight against their family, some are forced to, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I think the stark reality for me in Egypt, where 90% of women wear a veil, is social pressure. You know, what kind of choice do you then can you then make? Here in the North American context, it's very different. I imagine it's very difficult to wear a headscarf here because you stick out and everybody sees you. But this young woman came and she said to me, I came to your reading even though I disagree with you. But what I appreciate what you do is you complicate the picture of Muslim women. And I really like this idea of complicating, because I think that too many of our discussions about the veil are overly simplistic and reductive. And basically, I'm asked, as a woman who used to wear the headscarf, to basically shut up just because she has chosen to wear it. And I've already said, well, at one point, I thought I had made this choice, but it was so difficult to unchoose it. Do you know what I mean? So I think that this is a very difficult conversation. It has to be complicated. It is essentially a conversation that must take place between Muslim women. And I say this not to bar women or people of other cultures and religions, but you have to hear the voices of Muslim women because it is very complicated. But at the end of the day, as a feminist, I cannot support something that I feel unfairly burdens girls and women. Some young women I know in North America practice something that in the Middle East is unheard of. That will be 2 days of the week she will wear a headscarf, 3 days of the week that she won't. All power to them, because I think this is essential in breaking this idea that the veil is a religious thing. The more we move away, because I don't believe it's a religious thing anymore, there is nothing in the Quran that says a woman has to dress like this. Scholars have interpreted it that way, but others have interpreted it differently. The more these young women in North America play with what it means to be a veiled woman, the better. So she was telling me, you know, me and my friends, sometimes we wear hijab, sometimes we don't. And I was like, that does not happen in Egypt, believe me. I have women in Egypt who write to me and say, my mother has threatened to lock me up at home if I take off my headscarf. This is what I'm facing in Egypt. And then I have other young women here who say, look, do you know how difficult it is for me to wear it at school or at work? And I wear it out of basically identity politics. They want everyone to know that they're a Muslim, not necessarily religious. So I recognize the difference in the context, but at the end of the day, I cannot support something that expects just girls and women to make that choice. And then the ramifications of that choice. Where I come from, they can be very dangerous, because a woman who is so-called modest is considered a good woman, and someone like me is considered a bad woman. And at the end of the day, we all get groped on the street. We're all considered fair game because we have this trifecta that has essentially endangered our lives.